There's a woman sent me an email a while back from Texas, and she said, I registered my nephew for school. At the end of the registration, my nephew said to the principal, can I ask you a question? Principal said, sure. He said, how come I had to show my birth certificate to register for school, but Obama didn't have to show it to become president? And that says it all when a 13-year-old can identify with it.
And then they lie and say he's shown his birth certificate. He hasn't.
Well, no, he hasn't, and you get people who look like fools, like Chris Matthews shaking a piece of paper saying this is his birth certificate. No one has seen the birth certificate. What people have seen is not even a for real document, because at the bottom of the document it says if there's any alteration, it's invalid. What people have seen is a certification of live birth, which was even forged, and that was put on their campaign website.
All right, stay there, Phil. I want to come back and recap, though, and get into the Indonesian situation, the barry-soetoro, who this guy really is, because the birth certificate's only part of it. You know they're scared when they've got Republicans attacking the birthers. And you've got legislatures passing or in the process of passing laws, and the states do run the federal government, saying you want to be on the ballot here, you got to show your birth certificate. Now, let's shift gears, to the key here, and it's the fact that his real name is barry-soetoro. He became an Indonesian citizen. He got adopted by a foreign family. And you talk about this, and the mainstream media says that's a lie when that's on record, Phil-berg.
Absolutely. The key really, the bloggers on the internet, they try to say that it's all birth certificate, everything. We fight back and forth. But we raised the issue then, we shifted it. The issue really is, everyone out there, the fact that he was adopted or even acknowledged in Indonesia. In his books, he's sort of bound by certain things. Number one, in one of his books, he says he found his birth certificate. So it's baloney that he can't produce it. The reason he can't produce it, he'll show that he was born in Kenya. But the second thing in his book, he says his parents had been divorced. He says, my stepfather, Lolo Soetoro, returned to Indonesia before my mother and I. Well, that's significant because in the 1960s, Indonesia was at war. The only ones who could go to school there were those that were natural of Indonesia. He became natural because he was adopted or acknowledged. We have his school record on our website. His school record indicates his name is Barry-soetoro, S-O-E-T-O-R-O. His nationality is Indonesia, and his religion is Islam. Ladies and gentlemen, if he hasn't legally changed his name is his adopted name, Barry-soetoro. That is his name.
And that's what it was in college, and that's why it's all sealed.
That's right. That's why he's stealing. Well, I also think he sealed his records because I think it'll show he applied for and received foreign aid. Obama is the biggest hoax in the history of our country in over 230 years. He's a phony. He's a fraud. I'm not mentioning words here. I've been saying this, and I need the American support behind me. Follow me on ObamaCrimes.com. We're going to have a birth certificate march in Washington. Everyone bring a copy of your birth certificate, and we're going to demand that either he produced that he showed that he's constitutionally qualified, or we're going to ask him, demand that he resign, because Congress won't do anything right now. Congress should be impeached. This is a disaster what they have done and allowed. We're in a constitutional crisis because once we get past that, who becomes president? That's a whole new issue, another whole... Well,
let me just throw this in for you before we go to break in a long segment, time to flesh this out. He says he's going to sign executive orders on the carbon taxes, doesn't care what the Congress says. They stonewalled ClimateGate, said it didn't exist. That blew up in their face. It shows this is the most lying administration we've ever seen. Worse than Nixon, worse than Clinton, worse than Bush. He said no lobbyist. All he hired was lobbyists. He said not going to expand wars, expanded the wars. He said no signing statements, went back on that. This guy is continuing and expanding torture. This guy is a complete and total fraud. And from your deep research, lay it out, looking at this, what is Obama's real story?
Well, his real story, he's a phony. He's not constitutionally qualified. And the fact is, Alex, the reason he's doing the legislation he's doing and the reason his cabinet, think about it for a minute. I think the higher-ups in this country, the power brokers, the money people, said, we know Phil-berg and others are right. Do you want to be president? You got to play ball our way. Think about the cabinet he has. That's not the cabinet he ran on. He talks about change. Look about the legislation he's pushing. Is that the candidate of change? I think he's being blackmailed internal, and I'm waiting to see what happens when China and Iran get these documents, because I'm sure they're out there. And we're in a really, really bad situation because of Obama. He is a fraud. One of my lawsuits is I believe he's not only not natural born, he's not naturalized, but he's an illegal alien, and therefore one of my lawsuits deals with the fact that he should not have been a U.S. senator, and therefore the salary and benefit and expenses should be returned to the U.S. Treasury of about $1 million. More important, though, because he's a usurper or fraud, all the laws he's passing, as far as I am concerned, are void or voidable. I mean, we're really in a constitutional mess at this point. And, you know, some people are saying, oh, nothing should happen to Obama because if he goes out of office, even legally, Mr. Berg, there'll be riots in the streets. Well, there shouldn't be riots in the streets because there's one person to blame for this, and that's Barack Obama. Remember, he taught constitutional law for 10 years, everyone. Aside from the schools he maybe went to, we don't even know. He supposedly went to Occidental and Columbia University and Harvard Law School, where he was head of the Harvard Law Review. People haven't seen his writings. We know nothing about this person.
And that's the whole point. They release other presidents' records. They're being very secretive.
You know, he signed a document sealing all his records. I mean, this is a total disgrace. And we're going to do everything in our power to expose him and force him legally out of office. Nothing to happen to him, but force him legally out. Let him be tried. He should go to jail, and he should be deported.
And then he's got all this family that's here illegally, too, and living in slums. He doesn't even help them. I mean, he's really trashy.
Well, that's his aunt up in Boston who's still trying to fight immigration. She's an illegal alien, and he doesn't get near her because he's an illegal alien.
An illegal alien president. Well, we know his Barack Obama's a fake name. I mean, we know he was Indonesian citizen. It's on his school records. The records we do have, they're not denying those are real. They just don't want to talk about it. And you're right. They're blackmailing him and totally controlling him. More coming up. Okay, going back to Phil Berg. Phil, I'm going to try to sit down for a while and just let you roll with this whole saga, because we have a lot of new listeners. A lot of people just heard the media demonize birthers. Again, why this is so important, the whole Indonesia situation, and then we're going to open the phones up only on the birther issue, folks. For Phil Berg, 1-800-259-9231, 1-800-259-9231. Phil Berg.
Thank you, Alan. Ladies and gentlemen, this issue is so important because there's nothing more important than our U.S. Constitution. When I was contacted by an individual to do this, I checked into it and I proceeded. One thing I said from the first day I filed the first lawsuit, which is August 21st, 2008, which is like 19 months ago, I said, if I am wrong, Obama, prove me wrong, show me all the documentation certified from the source, and I will withdraw my lawsuits. Nothing like that has forthcoming. Nothing he has produced. Nothing. They keep referring to the same document that they produced as a birth certificate. What they produced, certificate of live birth, has no significance. It doesn't have what a birth certificate has. It does not have the baby's weight. It does not have the baby's length. It does not have the hospital name. It does not have the doctor's name and the doctor's signature. This is what's on a long-form bald birth certificate, which I've now received hundreds of them since we put out the announcement. We're asking people to fax or email or mail them to us for our birth certificate march on Washington, which will be in late May or June. But more significant than the birth certificate issue, because people keep arguing, you know, well, Chris Massey said he saw it, and Glenn Riley said he saw it, and I think both of them have backed off on those statements. But more significant is the fact that he was adopted or acknowledged in Indonesia. Now, I'll tell you why, because I had an argument the other day with an immigration attorney. I raised the question so people can identify with this. I said, what happens about the children that are being adopted here in the United States from Haiti? And he said, well, they sever all the relationships with Haiti, and they take the new family's last name, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I said, then how can you disagree with me that when Obama's adopted in Indonesia, the same thing doesn't take place? He lost his words. He couldn't speak. The fact is, when Obama, and it's in his book, so he's like stuck on certain things. His parents divorced. His mother remarries. He goes to Indonesia. We have his school record, which says his name is Barry-Soetoro. And as Alex said a little while ago, when he was first in Occidental, people knew him as Barry. That's his name. That's his legal name. Therefore, unless he has legally changed his name is barry-soetoro. You know, and many of you out there have adopted children or know someone that has adopted a child. They take your family last name. Now, significant is the fact is when he came back at age 10 to live with his mother's parents, his grandparents in Hawaii, we believe that he did not go through immigration. If he did go in through immigration, he would have been given a certificate of citizenship, but because he became a national of Indonesia, he would have only become naturalized. But we believe he didn't go through there. He went back on his Indonesia passport, and therefore he's an illegal alien. Therefore, he cannot be a U.S. Senator. Now, significant with this, on the school record, which is posted on our website from Indonesia, his name is Barry-Soetoro. His nationality is Indonesia. His religion is Islam. You know, he'd have you believe he was never a Muslim. Well, Islam is Muslim, and after he got sworn into office, now he's like basically catering to the Muslims. You know, like during the campaign, you could not use his middle name of Hussein. When he was sworn in, he becomes Barack Hussein Obama.
Then he went to Egypt. Then he went to Egypt and said, I have the same religion as you, and spoke Arabic from the Quran better than many people in the country. They were shocked by it, and just incredible.